Hello everyone and welcome to another bootleg review. In today's video, thanks to the team over at TF Direct, we're taking a look at the KO of Masterpiece DINOBOT. Now there are two versions of this. This is the straight up KO, which I've heard questionable things about. Apparently the quality isn't all that, and of course we are getting the infinite transformations version as well, which in my personal opinion, without even having it in hand, I can already tell you that that's going to be the better of the two. The IT Megatron is still one of my favourite bootlegs of the MP Megatron to date. We get this brown shipper box, nothing that really untoward, and inside everything is protected by this foam box, so it's not attempting to directly mimic the Masterpiece, so it's not trying to rip anybody off saying this is the Masterpiece version. This is blatantly a different setup and is a KO, so it's definitely worth bearing in mind that if they're selling these loose, chances are it's probably the KO out of this packaging and not likely to be the official product. If it's too good to be true, then it probably is. Right, and here we have him out of his foam prison. Now he's good, but he is definitely not great. There are some glaring flaws with this mold, and looking at some of the other videos out there, it seems to be something which affects nearly all of the versions of this KO. First of all, let's take a look at the accessories. We get the three parts to that big base section, which we can put Megatron on as well, which is handy because I like to display Megatron and Dinobot kind of fighting, which is nice to have two of these bases to enable that. We get the stands, so we can incorporate him on said base in both robot and Dino mode. Nothing glaringly obviously wrong with these pieces. These all seem absolutely fine. We get those beams that come from the eyes. There's a little bit of a sprue mark on the edge there. And this is very, very brittle and kind of dusty in places as well. I would not trust this not to break. We get the peg as well for the disc. So we peg it into his hand. It's obviously the sounds of Earth, although that does actually look like the sounds of Fart H, because of how that's been printed, but there we go. The biggest difference straight out of the box is the colouring on Dinobot's robot head. There's some sort of cotton wool or some sort of protection tissue there, but this is a very kind of dark metallic face. Not as much of a fan of these as I am the original paint scheme. I don't think we really needed to overpaint that, but I'll cover these when we cover the bot mode. We have all three different faces. We get the spiked sword weapon, which fits inside the tail, exactly the same as the original, but again we've got sprue marks, and I'll cover the weapons themselves in further detail when we get to his robot mode. Right, here we have our Raptors together. This here is Dinobot KO, and this here is regular awesome Dinobot with his panel forming parts. Biggest difference between these, noticeably straight out of the package, is the tightness of joints. We take a look at KO Dinobot, and we have got a very wibbly wobbly arm here. It's nothing that can't easily be rectified, because it's just where it sits inside this ball socket, it's just too loose. That ball needs to be kind of thickened out slightly, but that's something that you shouldn't have to do, that I'm going to have to do just if we want to pull off any decent poses. The tabs don't quite tab in as nicely as well. I know regular old Dinobot was a bit panel-tastic, but this new guy just doesn't quite tab in as nicely as I would have liked. These claws are definitely not as bright as official counterpart, but these are razor sharp talons. I mean, these are probably done as realistic as we're going to get them. You can see they're slightly duller, and the decor on them is also different as well. They've kind of just gone a little bit to town, poking and prodding in there with the sculpting tool, but they are razor sharp. The hands not as bad, still very sharp though. We still have the ability to switch out the eyes on the head just by lifting this up, and much like we got with Grimlock, these are of course spring loaded, and we can bring those eyes around. There we go, putting a bit of attitude in there. We can open up the jaw, and we have the tongue on the inside, although again the tongue is done in a much darker color and is a lot more difficult to hook out. Mine actually came broken straight out of the package. If you look at the back here where the toes fold in, mine's been pushed in and then pushed too far, so there's a small break on here. Now maybe I just put a little bit of glue inside there, bring that back and heat it up to remove the stress mark as well, but again that's something that really shouldn't be happening straight out of the back. I'm also missing a cover for the screw on his back of his dino leg as well. Obviously with the official product they were covered up rather nicely, and much like you would expect from something that's been kind of reverse engineered on the cheap, the levels of detail as well, they're not quite as deep. It's kind of, like I said, it's been reverse engineered, so the sculpting is never going to be quite as deep as it is on the original. The golden color is actually far more orange on the KO as well. You'll find that there's a little bit more overspray on the gold as well. Just very subtle differences. I mean, not something that you're going to notice if they're both put on display. For example, this is the official, and we've got a much lighter second tone here as opposed to this much darker one. But if this is going to be in your display cabinet and you're looking to get one on the cheap, just so you have one in each mode, then you're really not going to notice the difference. But if, like me, you want to have it posed and displayed, battling alongside other beast formers, then the dodgy articulation and lack of panels lining up could be a deal breaker. Something else I would just like to bring your attention to is the fact that the disc peg, for example, doesn't really peg in as tightly as I would like. Again, this is probably more than likely due to oversizing and undersizing, the joys of reverse engineering. And of course I will include a link to the full official review at the top of this video, but for those of you just wondering of Dinobot's scale, if this is your first time viewing him, then here he is alongside the 1/6 Atrociraptor and of course Optimus Shine, the MP-10. To give you an idea, he is a big boy. As much as I like him like this, let's take a look at the rest of the articulation faults as well. This arm isn't too bad at all. You've got a bicep rotation in there as well. You've got a bend on the elbow, bend on the wrist. The head can rotate, go up and down, really nice downwards motion. We've already covered the fact that we've got the difference in those eyes, and we've got that jaw that can open. No sideways tilt for the head though, which is something they added when it came to Megatron. The legs can come forwards and backwards. We can rotate them. These pieces here are actually slotted in on the underside. We've got another hinge at the base here. And yes, I know this isn't perfect, but here you can see him on his display stand. Just to give you an idea, that base piece just slides on the inside exactly like we did with the original. Now let's pop this all off, get this out of the way, undo this, and we can kind of leave that undone for now. We're going to undo this tail section. This is just going to lift up out of the back of these legs like so, and then this is just going to slide out. Now this is where we would store his sword. Incredibly difficult to split these as well. I've only transformed it a couple of times, and these in ones are pretty difficult. Slide this joint out, comes around to the top here, that pegs in there, and in theory these parts here are meant to slide into these holes, but unfortunately mine do not. They are just a little bit too thick. I'm going to have to shave a little piece off those with an X-Acto knife or something similar. I mean, it will line up, but it will not go into that hole. It's just slightly too thick, and that's the same on both sides. Now, of course, we can grab this, we can bring in our sword. We can either have it like this in his hand, or we can have it as part of that large spinning weapon, like so. You can then come around to the back of his legs, open up these tabs here. The feet are going to just untab like so, and this is where we see what the issue was here. This has definitely been pushed back too far. It's just, my heel spare literally just sheared clean off. It was so stiff. Should have really got a hairdryer on that, but hindsight, hey. So he's just going to be a complete and utter nightmare to balance now, but we can open up these tabs, bring these legs down and tab those back in, rotate the lower leg, bring this in and rotate the feet round, and just bring that tab on that foot. The leg then just pushes and locks back into position. Same on this side, lift this piece up, untab this leg, that's going to come back down, that's going to click into position. These thighs are going to lock back up, and the feet are going to rotate and line up and push and tab into place. These panels here lift up on both feet. The underside untabs like so, and we can bring that down. The underside of the dino legs and the underside of the robot legs are attached at this pegging point. You want to bring that all the way down. These panels here are going to fold out and in, out and back around. The dino head is going to come down as well, and these panels are going to separate. Bring these legs down and rotate them at the knee. Again, rotate that at the knee, and just make sure that these thighs slide and lock back in. Rotate this waist piece around, bring this piece here upwards. This can then rock forwards like this. This back panel is going to come up. This will come over. Move these arms out of the way. This dino head slide down and down again. These are going to open up. Bring these ridiculously sharp claws down, and then I'd love to say it was nice and easy, but it is not. Again, these pegs are crazy tight. They come round, that goes in to the bicep, and this closes back off. Rotate the biceps around so they're facing the front, and then we're going to rotate this piece down. This hinge is going to come down, and if we look on the underside here, this is going to rock inwards, and we want to concertina this hinge here so it folds completely down. So this piece is at the top. The arms can then come up to the top as well. These parts here are now going to sit on the inside, filling up that torso void, then bring this chest piece in. The outer Dinobot head can then be brought in as well. Collapse and fold these dino arms in, and they are just going to fold up to the back like so. And then these side panels are going to come in, and that is going to slide and tab in and tidy up. Make sure the shoulder hinge is facing downwards so we can get full range on those hands. Drop that head in and then come around to the back, and this piece here is just going to flip up and tab in on the back there like so. And there we have one Dinobot. Now he does definitely does not feel as solid as his official counterpart, but he's not bad. You know, it's just the joints, they feel a little bit lackluster, like his waist is a bit loose. Legs seem to work okay. You know, everything kind of does what it's meant to, but it just doesn't feel as good as the original. Knees and everything still bend. And chances are I've probably missed something glaringly obvious with this. Everybody's going to say, oh Ben, you didn't do this, that and the other. But it's just that really shiny metallic face I'm not entirely sure about. I know it matches kind of the metallic of the blue, but I did like it being how he was. I did like that kind of matte colour that they used with the original. Now we still have the battery function with this as well. Still takes the same batteries. We still have all of that head articulation as well. We can bring that all the way up, sink that in. Left and right shoulders, out, around, upper bicep rotation, double joint on the elbow. We've got open and close on those hands. Waist rotation, abdominal crunch as well, although my waist is ridiculously loose. Legs forward, backwards, out to the side. We do need a bit of TLC to kind of get them out and kind of work them around that tight joint. We have a bend on that knee as well as ankle pivot up and down. We have sideways tilt. We have some rotation on there. And we should have up and down on the heel spurs when they don't snap off. And here they are, both transformed up. It's definitely the colour difference, which I think is what makes it stand out the most. I really do prefer the original colour. Don't get me wrong, I like the orange on the legs. It's kind of more uniform, whereas we have different oranges spread out across the official. But it's this dark metallic blue. Really not a fan of how that's come out. I really do like this kind of more, almost kind of more pastel, more electric blue that they used with the official product. It's definitely a lot more noticeable when we turn the figures around. I mean, it's a vastly different shade, but like I said, it depends what you're after. If you're after a very cheap version of Dinobot, then yeah, maybe this could be the one for you if you want to pop it in your display as alt mode, etc. But if you don't already own a Dinobot and you're looking for like a KO, but high-end KO, I would avoid this one. I would wait for the Infinite Transformation just to see how that one turns out, because I honestly believe that's going to be 100 times better and closer to the original, but with the added die cast, etc. Chances are the paint applications may be better as well. He may even come with additional accessories, who knows, but I'm really looking forward to getting that in hand. It's a shame that the colour is so different, because I know a lot of people can't afford the official, so this would have been nice if it would have been a budget option, but I think just with the loose joints and the inability to tab in as cleanly as it should, I personally would just hang it out and wait just a little bit longer for that Infinite Transformation version. Faceplate swap is exactly the same as the original. It just untabs from the side. We've got a segment in here where we put the battery. To get access to the actual battery itself, there's a battery cover on the back there. You need to undo this screw, And there's a button just on the top here, which we would push in. We can bring in the head sculpt, for example, with the translucent eyes. Those would light up. And then we can bring in that laser function for said eyes as well. But personally, I do like the kind of angrier look to the face. There we go, just bring that around and bring that down. He looks like a happy bunny, doesn't he? Again, though, not all of the heads are created equally. This one had a really rattly jaw, which again is a shame. But like I mentioned, for a cheap alternative to the official, then yes, this is definitely an option. But personally, I would still hold out for infinite transformation. Thanks again to TF Direct for making this review possible. I've included a link just up here somewhere to the original video for DINOBOT, and of course I've included a playlist for all those KO MPs. Until next time, for myself and the KO of DINOBOT, thanks for watching, goodbye.